adoption is not charity. Right?
Absolutely not. A lot of people, for example, say to me, wow, she's so lucky. But the truth is, Aisha saved us. She saved me, she saved Prashant, she added so much to everybody around us.
Today's guest is Preeta Suktankar. Many people know her as the founder of the label Life, a woman who built a loved fashion and lifestyle brand. But today, I don't want to talk to her as an entrepreneur. I want to talk to her as a mother.
Everyone should know. It wasn't my second option ever. I did try to get pregnant naturally, as they call it. But the idea was always to have one pregnancy and adopt the other. I don't see why adoption is not normalized in a similar pattern because it's another channel to motherhood. I had ectopic pregnancies back to back, actually 4 of them. You are sort of going to end that pregnancy, but you're on the maternity floor. I can hear other babies being born. I mean, that's quite weird. But again, it's the female health experience, right? Nobody cares.
You made that conscious decision of telling Aisha that she was adopted, and at a very young age at that. How did you do it?
It was not an option. I don't know how any person, human's origin story can be a secret. How did you come home needs to be a part of child's journey.
Welcome to the Aditi Govitrikar show, Preeta.
Hello, Aditi.
Now, we all know Preeta as a big founder, somebody who got an exit from the label Life. But today we will talk about that, of course. But I want to talk about adoption to you because even today, this is a topic that not too many people speak about openly. You have been talking about it. So tell us, how did you decide on adopting a baby?
Thank you, Aditi, for having me. Big founder and all, I don't know, but I think I want to come and talk about adoption because not because I want to normalize it, right? For me, the decision always was to, and I'm being honest, not just because you're a close friend, but because everyone should know. I did try to get pregnant naturally, as they call it, but the idea was always to have one pregnancy and adopt the other, right? And to me, talking about it is sort of more a commitment that I made to myself that to, these days, as you know, fertility is such a big conversation. IVF is normalized on a daily basis.
Yes.
So I don't see why adoption is not normalized in a similar pattern because it's another channel to motherhood. And it's actually a woman's choice or even a family's choice to make whether they decide to do IVF, whether they decide to conceive naturally, or whether they adopt. Somehow in India, culturally, adoption is not considered an option. And it's not something that we can, again, judge because it's everybody's journey. But for me, it just seemed like a natural progression.
So you always wanted to be a mother?
I think from when I knew. I
Okay,
always wanted to be a mother.
Okay.
So, by the way, again, motherhood is an option, no, Aditi?
Yes,
I
absolutely.
feel like, again, the pressure that people put, sometimes when I look back on the decision making, I'm sure you do too. I don't know if it was my decision or it was how we were all
Social conditioning.
yeah, conditioned to believe that you wanted to be a mother.
Yeah.
Again, I feel for women who are ambitious, like ourselves, ticking all the boxes becomes something that we want to do. So I feel like in my 20s, it was like, okay, now I started a career, I bought a house, now I should be a mom. I mean, I felt, but today when I look back, it's the best decision. And of course, you know Aisha as well,
Yes.
my daughter, and I feel like I wouldn't have changed this process. I mean, that's just the sentimental angle. But going back to the story, I feel when I decided I wanted to adopt, it came after a bit of a journey. I had ectopic pregnancies back to back, actually 4 of them. And the first time, again, a guest of yours, Dr. Coelho, I had 1 tube removed. Then I had my second tube removed. And, I think that process came very quickly after my father passed away. And I think emotionally, I was at a place where I don't know whether I'd come to terms with it then, but the conditioning around, oh my God, now you can't conceive naturally, seemed to sort of loom large on.
So was that your own thought process that, oh my God, I can't conceive naturally? Or was it again that somebody said something or there was a trigger?
Oh my God, if I go into that process, it's really a long story, Aditi, because there's a lot that's flawed in our medical process. So at the end of it all, and just the patient experience, again, you being a professional, you'll understand it, led me down to also talk about Luma Fertility, which is another brand and founder that I work with. The patient experience in India is super broken. So, for example, as a first of all, not calling myself a patient, as a pregnant woman, even if it was an ectopic pregnancy, you are sort of going to end that pregnancy, but you're on the maternity floor. I mean,
Yeah.
I just don't get how, and I did it 4 times.
Yeah.
Today, when I look back, I feel like, my God, what a shitty process to go through. I mean, I don't know how it is anywhere in the world, because again, we are now grown up enough to know that female health is overlooked.
Yes.
But imagine being my first ectopic, I didn't know too much. So I was like, oh, what is ectopic pregnancy? I was still in that. The second time it happened, I was like, wow, what shitty luck. And then, she wanted to save my tubes, so to speak. So I was checked in with the hospital, only to realize I was checked in on the maternity floor,
Yeah.
which is just ridiculous, Aditi.
Yeah.
You're going through I can't
Trauma.
recollect
It's emotional trauma.
It's emotional. And then you're like, oh, wow, I can hear other babies being born.
Yeah.
I mean, that's quite weird.
Attachar.
Really?
Yeah.
But again, it's the female health experience,
It
right?
is.
Nobody cares.
Yeah.
But I think post that, I was quite sure that my sort of expectation of wanting a child needed to happen.
So how much
And-
time did you take to decide after the ectopic pregnancy was removed, after the tubes were removed, that okay, this is it, now I will start looking for a baby to come home?
So see, this is now 13 years back. I wanted to start the other process. At that point, I actually knew a trust, Balasha Trust, and I knew the trustee, who's no more. So I think for me, the process today, when I look back, she passed away maybe, I think, 6 or 7 years back. But I think she had sort of known of my journey. She knew me. So I think it may have been an easier process. Moving to Kara has organized the system far better. I don't know if you guys know this, but this is the one thing in our country which is very systemized and beautifully done. So it's not one of those things that you see in Hindi movies where you walk in and say, "Mere ko ye bacha chahiye." It's
So what is
nothing
the
like that.
process? How was the process with Aisha?
So you actually fill out a form. You go into even for Kara, it's the same, where you fill out a form and they ask you preferences for state and things. And at least back then, they will present you with medical reports and photos of 3 children.
Okay.
So the way it goes is, you see the first. If you reject it, you see the next. If you reject it, you see the third. But you can't go back to the first, which is brilliant. And you can't reject on the basis of kuch bhi. I mean, it has to be, there has to be either the medical issue is not something that you are comfortable with as a parent, or different things. Once you say yes to the first and you do the medical process, you actually get to see the baby.
Okay. How was
And-
that experience?
Oh my God. It was amazing. And you know what I have done? And I think this is advice to adoptive parents. I actually filmed that experience. So for Aisha, and I think I've also said this to many adoptive parents after, and I think that is like, I look like I am so beyond elated to meet her when you plan to tell your child he's adopted. I think this remains for me the number one hack, since hack is a word people understand. I feel like that video is her favorite video and actually remains my favorite video. And we revisit it a lot. And we revisited it from such an early on stage that it just is part of our lives, and everybody looks excited in that video. You get to see the baby once before when you say yes. Okay, and at that point they don't really give the
Give
baby to you.
immediately.
They sort of bring the baby out.
You got to see Aisha when you said yes, and then
When I
after
said
how
yes to
long?
the blood report.
Blood report.
So-
after saying yes, how much time do they take to give you the baby, and how did you plan that? That
So-
period must be so exciting.
So Aditi, I don't know what it's like now. So I'm being upfront because Kara, I think in Kara, at least from what I know from my friends who've adopted, first it takes time. After that, they actually tell you where the baby is. See, I was Balasha's Bombay based. It was easier, right? With it, both my family member and someone recently, their babies are from a different state. So they had to go there and then they saw the baby and brought the baby home.
Okay.
So I think it's different when it's outstation. For me, Aisha was in Bombay. And after you approve of the blood test, and she knows the story, by the way, you actually need a week to 10 days till they put out a police report. It's very organized in India, by the way. They put out a police report. They try and look for the people who gave birth to her.
The biological.
Yeah, I do not call them parents. That's
No.
another thing we should discuss. But they look for the people who gave birth to her. And upon a wide search and even newspaper ads, I think, they decide to allow you to take your baby home.
So then at that time, Prashant was with you, and your sister-in-law, who's the godmother,
Yeah.
was with you. What was that feeling when you held? How young was she when she came to you?
She was short of 4 months old.
So it was a baby in arms,
Yeah,
literally,
yeah.
right?
So cute.
So what was the first feeling when you held her?
So I actually, I'm a very big baby person, Aditi.
Yes,
you
we know that.
I love babies to a fault. So it's also a little creepy, as you know, because I stalk babies, and my daughter knows this about me and can't stand it. Now she's very jealous, even now at the age of 13, when I look at babies. But yeah, I mean, I think, I don't know, yeah, Aditi. I can't remember it, to be really honest. I just remember wanting this for really long and feeling, this age-old thing, trope of being, you feel complete and all is, I think motherhood does work in some sort of mysterious ways. I do recommend it, despite feeling that it should be a choice for every woman. I do think that for me, it really worked.
Now coming to co-parenting, that's a very, very different path that you have led, almost, where we keep telling you that you lead a life of a, so to say, modern family. How did that happen?
So, given that you already know I'm a bit delusional, I think the similar tactic works here, right? Now, when again we look back, what ended up happening for me is it was a very, obviously a tough time. You lose a parent, you don't realize as soon as you lose a parent, you've also miscarried. That was pre my ectopic journey. Then you've had ectopic pregnancies. I feel like Prashant, who I was married to from 1999, I think Prashant took a stand where today I see it differently, and I'll explain what I mean by that. Prashant took a stand that he was very keen that I don't harm myself anymore. So he kept saying,
by harm means not
like,
to
continue to get pregnant, right?
Yeah.
He was like, you already know that this is, so fertility, so to speak, isn't the problem. We seem to be getting pregnant again. There is something up. Take a break. Don't do it. And because after my first ectopic pregnancy, I also was made to do the TB medication, which I don't know if it's still a thing, but it's a 9-month medication, which is actually bad for you as well. And during that time, he was like, hello, I mean, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Do you really feel like we need to
continue this?
And but again, I'm not saying this good or bad, because again, I have no framework to relationships or don't believe in like the institutions of anything. By then I had become, today I feel I had just become either self-absorbed, or I felt like that box needed to be ticked. Today, when I look back, I feel it was grief in a different form. And I may have been grieving and not seeing that, wow, I'm blessed with a partner who actually only wants what's good for me. I think when I look back, I do feel like I could have done things differently. But then look at Aisha, right? So for me, everything works out. And
Yeah.
very quickly, he decided to support me to get her home. And I think in the beginning, he was a bit nervous as to how does this work. But I had a
How
village.
does one navigate through
Yeah.
this?
I had a village. I had all of you, and I had my girlfriends, and he would come and see her, and I could tell that every time he saw her, it was very cute. They were really into each other, and I just allowed it to be organic.
So when we speak about co-parenting, how is Prashant? What has gone through his mind? Have you ever spoken about it openly, or you just kind of went with the flow?
No. I feel like he now communicates, and so do I. Very openly.
Now
So, yeah.
let's talk about stigma that is attached to adoption as a process in India. There are many people that we know, like you had decided that I will have one biological and one adoptive child. There are many people now who are choosing to adopt as a first choice. Yet there is so much stigma. Arey, why are you adopting? Why do you not want to conceive? Why do you not? Our child. So did you hear these things when you had decided to? And how did you battle that?
So I think again, I have always been somebody who's never cared about what anybody has to say. So to be fair, I've not heard any of this. And even if I had heard it, I don't think it would have mattered once my decision was made. So I think sometimes you just have to not care. But
Yeah.
it's easier said than done,
Yeah.
because I do know everybody deals with it a lot. So I'll give you examples of people around me, right? I actually like to handhold a lot because on this process, and that's why I was so happy that to be a discussion even with you, because I think people should realize more and more, not just that it's not any different, it's just such a joy to be able to parent anyway. Like even in our own lives, we realize nieces are parented, nephews are parented. Why should this be any different, right? And it's not just lip service.
Yeah.
You will
Yeah,
realize it.
Adoption is not charity.
Absolutely not. A lot of people, for example, say to me, wow, she's so lucky. And my response, immediate response earlier would be, again, something to be, to just say something back. It may not be politely, but then I realized everybody is a form of their own conditioning, parenting, life. I think I'm really now reaching
In
that
a Zen mode.
But the truth is, Aisha saved us. She saved me, she saved Prashant, she added so much to everybody around us, including my best friends who have decided not to have kids, or an aunt, or everybody around us. So I feel like it was any parenting or any parenting decision is actually needs to be selfless, right? If it's not, then any journey that you take, whether you conceive biologically, you do IVF, whatever form of pregnancy, how can you think it's good for the kid? I mean, it's actually one of those exercises that is selfish because it's good for you.
Let's come to telling Aisha. You again took a brave decision, and I'll tell you why brave, because generally these kind of things are swept under the carpet. Kyun batana hai usko? There's no need right now. Let her find out organically. You made that conscious decision of telling Aisha that she was adopted, and at a very young age at that. How did you decide to do that, and how did you do it?
It was not an option. I don't know how any human's origin story can be a secret. I mean, by the way, actually know adoptive moms, and not just moms, adoptive parents who haven't told her. Even today, as I do this podcast, despite being an advocate and telling a lot of people, I've written a book, as you know.
Perfect match.
Yeah.
I think that's a brilliant thing you did, and I think it will help a lot of adoptive parents to break the news.
So I'll tell you, it was then thought through. First of all, as a counselor, Balasha, Sunil, and Mrs. Karandikar, who late Mrs. Karandikar, actually advised me, as they do counseling. Everybody gets a little bit of counseling before they take a baby home, and I was very clearly told that this is just the way how did you come home needs to be a part of a child's journey. We do it. We do it with biological children, where you say, "Oh, there was a rainy night. I was taken to the hospital at night." Same way, it needs to be sort of told to your child. But they always say it's your decision. But by the age of 5, the kid needs to be aware that they may not actually understand or grasp the idea of adoption, but should know that the manner in which they came to be was not biological. But I feel like as soon as she came home, we actually celebrated her homecoming. I think one very basic thing that we still do today is that she has been told from almost age 1, no, from when they understand, there were 2 birthdays. So I think for Aisha, she always sort of thought there were 2 momentous occasions, right? One was her birthday and one was the day that she came home. So that was one title, or that was one sort of institution we built, where her homecoming also involved some sort of celebration. Also, from her first homecoming, I started taking her back to Balasha. Amazingly, Balasha and the counselor there informed me that there will come a time when they don't love coming back to Balasha. And that could be part of the journey as well. Because once they grow up, they then are properly aware that that's the home that they were brought to when they were possibly birthed, right? So interestingly enough, the last couple of years, Aisha is not excited about going back to Balasha, but she remains very excited about the homecoming. So, you know, again, when you win at one thing, I'm okay with her not going back. So I think very quickly, maybe around the age of 3 or 4, she was pretty aware. And I had started to tell her a story when she went to sleep. And that story sort of was a story where I said that you and I really looked for you. And I spent many years waiting and wanting a baby just like you. And actually made it quite cute that I would be looking, I'm a scuba diver, so I was looking below the surface, above the, you know, the cuteness like that. And I said, then I saw you and it was just like,
perfect
I
match.
felt perfectly matched, right?
Perfect match.
Yeah. And I really sort of thought that it worked because it became like her cute story. Tell me that story. How did our hearts click? You know, so eventually I feel like it was my way of being in a very intimate setting, which I think for all mothers, we love putting our babies to sleep because that's just, I love putting my nephews to sleep also, by the way. But it's that moment
Bonding.
you have where it's just you and you can say whatever you like. And I think it was a practice we had. And I feel like that practice sort of translated to me being able to tell her in our way, right? I actually wrote about it in an article recently in Times of India, because again, that moment I think remains. So recently, we are also very open about it, Aditi, that she's adopted among her friends, right? So I feel it's quite cute because even when she was 4 or 5, she felt the need to tell people more than I did. Because I think I feel now pop psychology, but she realizes it's different, right? So it's also special. And it's interesting for her to gauge it even among her friends. So I feel she had started to tell people randomly in school, you know, and I used to go to her school and feel like I should tell the class teacher, you know, in case the class teacher notices that she's being bullied for it, because she was such a confident kid. I didn't want anything to break her confidence.
Spirit and
Amazingly, it's interesting how the adults react. Actually, it's never the kids. I mean, kids can be mean, I'm sure, but again, that's a trope. I feel it's how the adults respond. There are 2 instances that I want to tell you about. One is a mother decided to call me and say, your child has told my child that she's an orphan. It's okay. So I allowed and that she goes to London and Paris a lot, and it was, you know, as if that my child was making up something. So I said, hi, yes, my daughter is adopted and she's very confident about it. I'm sure she won't use the word orphan because an orphan is a child that hasn't been parented.
Correct.
That's not mine. So I'm sure she didn't use that. So it's interesting that the choice of word from the parent, one. And I said, secondly, yes, her aunt lives in London and currently is in Paris. So again, my child is not imagining this. She does travel a lot. The second time, which happened recently, 2 or 3 years back, somebody she's really fond of, a boy, decided to tell her that, when you're adopted, what that means is that the police can come home and take you anytime.
Oh my God.
Okay. Now, interestingly, this was, and I'm also not so amazing. It was quite emotional for me because again, I was putting her to sleep at night and she was odd. And my daughter and I share a very deep bond. And I find her also to be extremely sensitive to how I am, the same way I'm quite sensitive to her. And she was quite emo that night. So I said, what's up? And you need to tell me what's up. And she said, so-and-so told me this. And I said, okay, wow. But again, this is something that you've taught me, Aditi, you must know over the years of knowing you, ki you take an opportunity to and make it a tool, right, in your mental journey or self-awareness journey. And I actually used that as a tool. I quickly said, let me show you the birth certificate. Because amazingly, I had remembered reading that the birth certificate is also a great tool in India to tell you when you are an adoptive parent, actually on the birth certificate, it is your names. Because most adoption happens in India, it's a closed adoption. Usually the children are abandoned and the reasons are plentiful, right? In our country, the number one reason actually is a girl child.
Oh, wow.
But it is. So I use that I said, first of all, nobody can take anybody away from your parents because it's legally impossible. I said, so first of all, if any police come up at the door like, hello, it's not going to happen. So that's something that this child has done to scare you. I said, secondly, here's your birth certificate. Very clearly says my name and your dad's name. So you're clear. So that was, I think it was
Must be such a relief
for a 9 or 10-year-old. It was like enough. And then secondly, I went back. I put her to sleep. She seemed fine. I went back thinking that, this poor kid also, right? This boy who told her. And I said, this is again something that comes from raising boys differently and raising girls. I feel my child is very confident. And there will always be an attempt as a girl for somebody to try to break your confidence. That's how I see it, right? And I think that it was okay. But I was really emotional at night saying that, I don't want my child to be treated any differently. And I think it's the same for trans kids or gay kids or anything, right? The minute it's the adults that treat you differently.
Absolutely.
The kids do, but they don't mean to.
But the kids also learn from the adults at home or society, right? At the end of the day, if we kind of walk the talk and say, no, everything and everybody is acceptable and they are equal, then the kids also look at things differently. We put those things in the children's mind.
I again anecdotally tell you a very cute instance, actually cute. So I have again ensured over the years that Aisha hangs out a lot with parents who are unique. Right? So I have
Such as?
friends who are same-sex parents. I have friends intentionally. I have other adoptive parents. I have a founder who I'm super close to who is adopted. So I wanted to share that with Aisha saying, so-and-so auntie is adopted. Would you like to ask her any questions? Or like she's a successful founder and, then want to tell her stories about things like that, just so she realizes that she is not alone. It's actually a cool thing. She loves it now. So she'll, just so that she has that sync up with someone else. So in that, one of those kids was home. And that kid, and this must have been a couple of years back, 7 or 8, that they must have been 7 or 8. And that kid comes to me and says, so auntie, where are Aisha's real parents? Okay. And I can hear that Aisha must be also listening in. And they were both really young. So she came to my bedroom and she's like, I have a question. So Aisha's adopted. Where are her real parents? So I looked at her and said, you're looking at them. I mean real. I said, You are looking at them,
Hmm.
you know. So she was like, no, I mean, her didn't know how to say biological. So I guess she was struggling. So I said, you mean the people who gave birth to her?
Hmm.
I said, those are not parents.
Hmm.
People who nurture their children to be adults from, 0 to 1, literally, like a startup. Those are parents,
Hmm.
People who gave birth to her, I said, honestly, giving birth is anybody can do it.
Hmm.
Being a parent
Yeah.
is rare.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm the parent.
Hmm.
So I've never used birth parents.
Hmm.
Again, let me interject. A lot of my friends use birth parents and birth mother, and it's fine.
Hmm.
And one of my dearest friends has actually created a birth mother story, and that works for her son. I had chosen not to
You've
do
steered
it
clear of
because
that.
I actually genuinely do believe that parenting is, giving birth is, honestly, anybody can do it. Parenting
Yeah.
is the hard
Yeah.
bit.
So you
and
should not actually give them that title
Yeah.
of being a parent
I
because
didn't
you've not
want
been
to.
a parent.
And
right?
so I think for Aisha as well, it's not been a title. So that was one thing. And so it was very sweet because this girl came and said this, and then she got the message and she must have gone back and relayed it or whatever.
You have been the founder of the Label Life, and today you are an advisor to so many other companies such as Foxtail, Luma Fertility, etc. How did you navigate parenting with the difficult journey of being a founder? Because I remember this incident when which you had shared with me. There have been days where I have on the bathroom floor wondering what I'm doing, whether I should close what I have started, whether I should shut what I have started. You had come to that level where you were so, and it's very rare to see you overwhelmed.
Yeah.
I have never ever seen you
Oh my
down and
God.
out. But I remember that moment. That's why I remember this story, because again, it is not you, but you did go through that where you were like wondering whether to.
No, so to be fair, I don't think the parenting along with building a business was tougher. I think it was, Aisha came home in the same year that I started the Label Life. To be fair, it's a joke that I had those days when I used to be interviewed and stuff. I used to say, I'm managing 2 babies and I don't know which one cries more. Very clearly, it was the business. I think parenting is a far simpler journey than a 0 to 1. I'm being cute when I say that. Parenting is tough, but I think the 0 to 1 journey, I am now an advisor to other female founders specifically. It's a purpose building exercise again. And I feel like people don't talk about it enough because you just see it in newspapers and you're like, somebody raised 100 crores,
Yeah.
somebody raised 20 crores, somebody has this valuation. And I'm only correcting people. I feel like now my purpose in life is to correct people on this front, because somebody yesterday said to me, oh, so and so is worth 100 crores. I was like, the business is worth 100 crores. Also, that person doesn't have 100 crores. Also, that doesn't mean the same thing. Let's start correcting people as to what the story is, because yes, you're right about the overwhelming part. I think what overwhelmed me was COVID. It was a really great leveler for a lot of brands, because when life tells you that nothing's going to happen, you have to stop. And you suddenly have 100 people that salaries need to be paid,
Yeah.
but there's no money coming in for a really long time. I think 6th or 7th month of COVID, I was just done.
Yeah.
I was like, how can I do this? And things like I started Label Life without having a background in business. I think there's so many lessons today that I feel like people who know how to run P&Ls should be the only ones allowed to raise money or be given money. I really feel that. Or there needs to be a crash course in how do you really run a business, because there's so many aspects to it. It's not only ki I have an idea. So I don't think I would consider myself a successful founder in a financial sense yet, because I have now chosen to partner, collaborate, help other founders in a very unique manner, because I don't have a description of how I work with these founders, but I work with now actually Foxtail is a large brand, and Ramita and I go back 4 years, and so I've also been part of her early journey. But today I feel like I am more like a sounding board. I won't say I know what to do, but I definitely know what not to do, right? So I think that's become my asset.
You've been a very strong women supporter. What is that one message that you would like to give to all women out there who want to navigate through this founding journey and being a parent?
So first of all, I feel just start. I think women, we as just stuck with imposter syndrome. It's just inside us. Mother's guilt, all those things. Just start. Once you start, you'll know what to. It's actually as simple as that. Just start. You know, you are someone who reinvents themselves all the time. I think that's
And I just start. I don't
Yeah.
overthink it, because
Don't
I
overthink.
feel that if I start thinking, then I don't land up starting. And it's
it's just-
happened with me.
You know, Aditi, I want to say, as someone who's known you for so long, your reinvention story needs to be documented somewhere. You also don't talk about it
I'll
enough.
speak
you know?
about it. on
No,
my-
but you
my
should.
own podcast.
Because from where I know you to how you have managed it is just, it's not even like it's some, you know, what I love about both of us is it could have easily been turned into
Oh, yeah.
something else, right?
Yes.
I know so many women who just with horrible, but I'm saying it very as a dedication
Yeah.
or ode to you, Aditi. But there's so many women I know who feel victimized in marriages or divorces, or even if they've had miscarriages, it feels like that changed their trajectory to life.
Yeah.
But both you and I,
Yeah.
and you have been inspiring to me because a lot happened to
And
you
likewise,
as well.
you know that.
Yeah.
You know that.
Mutual Admiration Society. But
Yes.
to have agency,
Hmm.
I think women should really feel that having your own agency, it's girls, women, it's
Yeah.
actually women.
Yeah.
Only because unfortunately life has not given us the conditioning or the environment or anything for us to feel like we have agency.
True.
We have agency.
And we need to own it.
Yeah,
right,
and
at
we
the
need
end
to
of the
own
day.
it.
So that's what I say, that everybody gets knocks on their heads.
Mhm.
Life does that to you. Now you can either go downwards or you can pick yourself up and go upwards.
Yeah.
That's your choice.
Absolutely.
Again, easier said than done. I'm not saying it's easy. But hey, I mean, what can you do?
Yeah.
There are certain things that happen to you. So,
So I want to say thank you.
oh,
No,
thank you,
because
thank you.
really, the reality is that over time, we've also had a group of women around us.
Yes.
And all of us have had different stories. And when
Yeah.
we're together, we always talk about everybody's different journey and
Yeah,
story.
yeah.
And I think it's really important who you surround yourself with as
Absolutely. Anyway, so thank you. Thank you so much for being here on the Aditi Govitrikar show.
well. Thank you, Aditi.